What's up, everybody? Welcome to a brand new episode of the 5280 podcast on the MHRT Network. I am Mundungus Creevy. As always, alongside the co-host Cameron Parker, Glenn Hauser, and Gates Madrid. Boys, it's been a minute, but we are back, and we are back for at least the next 7 months. Probably 8 because we're going to win the Super Bowl. So, boom. How's it going?
Broncos are going undefeated and win the Super Bowl. Yeah.
Football's back in the Mile High City. It's going about as well as it could right now.
The fact that Sean Payton is talking Super Bowl to Diana Rossini and Chase Daniel says a lot.
Mm-hmm.
You don't hear coaches very often bring that up this early on.
Just think about how far we've come in the past 2 years.
Yeah, speaking of the last 2 years, a lot of talk about Courtland Sutton and whether he was going to get extended, whether he was going to leave, whatever the case may be. Finally signs a 4-year, $92 million extension with $41 million guaranteed. So he's staying around for the foreseeable future.
Yeah. There's so many things to, peel back with the whole Sutton thing. You know, just because, there's just so many, and I mean this positively, because it's just, it started out where he already had, the perfect influence, if you will, of veteran leadership in the building with, Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders. And, it was the dawn of a new era once they drafted Courtland Sutton. And, probably should have been a Dallas Cowboy, was not a Dallas Cowboy, ended up, being a Denver Bronco. And I would say, for all intents and purposes, it worked out just fine. And, he played pretty well in that 2019 season. Unfortunately, didn't have a 1,000-yard season since then. Became, susceptible to pretty subpar, and that's putting it lightly, quarterback play. Then he, finally gets a chance to have his quarterback, and I think we made this point before, but it's maybe we are finally getting the chance to see that Courtland Sutton that we saw in 2019, and funny enough, Sean talked about that. But, we are finally getting a chance to see that and see it be developed, which is something that, every Broncos fan should be so happy about, because obviously he's not the only one that's being developed. There's other players within that room that's being developed, but, he deserves this contract. I know we've been harping on him a little bit dating back to last year in that certain situation of him holding out. But kudos to him, man. The Broncos did the right thing. They didn't want to ruin Bo Nix's development by moving on from the number one weapon for him in that wide receiver room. And kudos to Courtland.
Indeed. And I think that it's just a testament to being patient with the organization and just having faith that something's going to get done. Obviously, last year, the team gave him a bunch of incentives, and Sean Payton made sure that all of those incentives would be met. And he was able to build that chemistry with Bo Nix, build that camaraderie, because quite frankly, that's a young quarterback's best friend, is having that number one receiver that you can depend on in any given situation. And Sutton's been a good soldier, man. We can sit here and say what we want, but he's been a great soldier throughout this entire process. And it's just another feather in the cap of the Broncos front office for being able to get this done. And it's a good track record to have for free agents, because they're going to see this and be like, okay, this is a team that takes care of their players. I want to go play for that organization.
Right.
Gage, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, we've talked before about how this organization had a reputation where guys had no expectation that they were going to get a second contract here. It was just, you were going to be here for 3 or 4 years and just move on to your next adventure. But to bring Courtland back, the fact that he wanted to be back so badly, his press conference, is well worth watching if you haven't seen it. And the fact that he's excited, to work with Bo again, and that Bo trusts him so much. But, I think getting a team leader, getting a team captain with a deal that's great for him, but also great for the team. I mean, it's an absolute no-brainer. We'll probably see a couple more contracts, come down the road in the coming days. But, I think that Courtland was a good first one to start right off the bat. Who do you think is the next domino to fall in this one?
Honestly, I don't think we know the answer because it could really be anyone. But obviously, it goes back to the same conversation that we've had, which is it should be Zach Allen, right? Like Allen was probably your number one priority, even ahead of Sutton. But we also said it could be anyone, and I think when you kind of peel the back, it's interesting because it's like when you kind of peel the back, it's like Sutton's contract of all the big three, if you will, probably made the most sense and logical sense to get it done like right away, right? And looking at his contract and how it was so favorable, I think, because we were briefly touching on this, like it wasn't so much like the average per year that I was worried about, right? Like it wasn't so much the average per year that I was worried about. It was like the guaranteed money, and he got, you could call it irony or whatever, but he got the same guaranteed money as Jerry Jeudy with Cleveland. And so it's interesting to me based on the deal that he got, and obviously he's in like the top 15 or so of wide receiver contracts now in the NFL. But the way it's now structured is they didn't really scrape anything as far as the first, 2 years, if you will, meaning this year or next year. So it's in essence, they're taking some of this money and then they're allowing themselves some structure and, to be able to spend money even next year to build this team even forward. And I think that's such a beautiful thing going forward. And then obviously more so because of the affordability of this contract, it's going to allow them to afford guys like Nick Bonito and Zach Allen to possibly these larger contracts that maybe Zach Allen and maybe Bonito have been wanting.
Yeah, now, Cam, I got a question for you. Did you know that nothing beats a Jet 2 holiday? And right now, you can save 50 pounds per person. That's 200 pounds off for a family of 4. We've got millions of free child place holidays available with 22 kilograms of baggage included. So book now with Jet 2 holidays, package holidays you can trust.
What even is that from?
I have no clue. I don't know what 22 kilograms is equal to. I don't know what 50 pounds is equal to.
It was like I was, Mike was reading a live read.
I do what I can. I'm just waiting for those Manscaped comments.
Mike, if we're talking Manscaped, Mike definitely knows what 50 pounds is. But, but just to comment on what Cam was just saying, you almost forget that we still have the second half or the second portion of Russell Wilson's dead money, that this team is operating in such a favorable area. And this front office has been just masterful. And all of this dead money is going to be cleared, or a big chunk of it's going to be cleared after this year. All the Russ one is, money is going to be gone. It's just been astounding how well they've performed in the front office area.
Yeah, and with his great is like the front office has been at signing people. You also have to think like this is the first time in a long time we're going to have continuity at head coach and quarterback, right? Like Cam mentioned it a little bit, Gage mentioned it a little bit. We have Sean Payton and Bo Nix back-to-back seasons. And from everything I'm hearing in training camp, Bo Nix is looking more confident. He's looking more he's taking on more of that leadership role. I don't think there's going to be a sophomore slump. I think this is that year that Bo takes off, and it's because of having that same coach, that same system that he came in with last year.
Yeah, no doubt, man. You're seeing a more confident Bo Nix just in terms of operating the offense. He's not struggling to get the play call out. He's not struggling to remember what the snap count is. All of that basic stuff is just going to be able to elevate this offense. But building that chemistry and building that continuity with guys like Evan Ingram, Cortland Sutton's back out there, so they're going to continue to build that chemistry. Troy Franklin as well. So obviously, we've talked about him stepping up and making these big-time plays. We're seeing a more confident Bo Nix. We're like seeing the level 2 of Bo Nix, if you will. And I think it's just going to continue to get better and better as training camp goes on. The ball's been going where it needs to be. He's been efficient in distributing it. Yeah, I've been impressed.
Yeah. Well, and to the Bo point, it's like, or I should say the obvious point is this is the first time that we have a head coach and quarterback marriage from the Broncos side of things since Peyton Manning. And also to Sean Payton's point, this is the first time that Sean Payton has had the same quarterback from back-to-back years since Drew Brees, who, by the way, it's probably worth mentioning that, has been spending time with Bo. And I think that just goes to show you how invaluable a player like that, meaning Bo, has taken advantage of every resource that he possibly can. And that goes to show you the type of player and person that he is. It's just how he's wired. And I really do think a lot of that comes from him being a coach's kid. Having that and his dad being a very valuable resource for him, where he can just spout off different things for advice and everything else like that. It's trickled down to the way he is as far as his detail, the way he is probably being that cerebral type of quarterback that, Sean Payton fell in love with. So everything is just falling into place for how Nick's trajectory is certainly going to possibly go upwards, if you will. So I just think that, like, there's the idea you don't want to get too wrapped up in the idea of a sophomore slump for sure. But I think there's certainly a window where it can happen because there's, it's always 50-50. It certainly can happen. It's just the way things have just been set up for the Broncos from not just the sophomore slump, but just the overall retention of the roster. Like they have 86% retention of the players on the roster.
Yeah. I've heard reports that he actually is stockier, that he's muscled up a little bit. Have you guys noticed that when you've seen him in person?
A little bit, but I've also just noticed that his mechanics are better than they were last year. So you can tell that he's honing in on the finer details of improving his craft. I do think that maybe he has hit the weight room a little bit as a result of that, but that's the main thing that really sticks out to me is that his throwing mechanics look a lot more smooth than they did last year.
And I wonder if that has anything to do with the 4 to 5 days he spent with Drew Brees in the offseason.
Yeah.
And Tom House, the throwing guru.
And not only that, but we finally have a Broncos quarterback on the NFL Top 100. Bo Nix goes at number 64.
I will actually come out and say I was surprised. The simple fact about how he's been publicly criticized by almost everyone that you would talk to that is really low on him. I think it, shows a lot. And I think that we also have to remember that the NFL Top 100, for as much as it's a bit of a popularity contest, if you will, this is also voted on by the players. So that means that with Bo being voted as a top 64 player in the NFL Top 100, I think we could probably use process of elimination here. And that means that to these players, Nix played at a top 12 to top 15 quarterback level as a rookie, leading them to the playoffs. So, we know Jaden's going to be a bit higher, but that alone is such an incredible achievement for, the team's MVP last year.
Yeah, for sure, man. And this is a list that's voted on by his peers. So it just goes to show that he's respected by his peers. They recognize his game. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a really cool accomplishment after a really awesome rookie season.
All right. So that covers about everything that I've heard of outside of training camp. So let's dig into what everybody wants, which is training camp. Gage, I know that you have gone 2 days. Cam, you went 1 day. I asked it in the group chat, but I want to ask it before we get into the player stuff. I know that Broncos Park or Dove Valley is under construction and they are changing everything. What is different between this year and last year, and what changes are they going to continue to make?
There's quite a bit that's different. So the fan berm that was previously there is gone. That's where they're building the new building. However, Sean Payton said all that dirt's being stored, and where the old building is, it's going to be torn down, and that's where the berm's going to go. They've got fans facing from south to north. So we've got the sun from the east coming on us pretty good there. We're on some temporary bleachers. We're looking straight down the line on the field. I think it's a decent view. I missed the berm because it was cooler on the berm, I felt like. But I think that the Broncos did a really good job of enhancing the fan experience as much as possible for the limited resources that they have. Obviously, next year they're going to be able to hold things in a full capacity again. They very easily could have punted this year and said, no, we're just not going to have fans at camp this year. A lot of other teams do that when they renovate their facilities, but Broncos ownership isn't going to do that. They feel like the players vibe off of the fans being there, and they really thrive off of the energy. So even though there's only 800 fans, there are 800 very rowdy fans, and they're making a big-time impact out there. Broncos country is showing up in full force despite it being a limited crowd.
Yeah, and I just think for me, maybe it's the subtlety, but I like the idea of where they put the bleachers and that they put them right next to the VIP tent. Like, we should say that. Like, because obviously when you're looking at camp and when we had been on the berm, that VIP tent had been on that, right side from, where you were, on the berm. And I think for maybe me being a bit of a sicko for all 22, I like that bleachers look personally. I mean, it's always going to be a bit uncomfortable too in the summertime, and obviously with it being so hot, in Colorado as of late. But I love that view because it actually gives you a far better view than what you had at the berm. Like, you're getting more of that broadcast type of view of the side views and everything like that. And it can be a bit hard as far as, what you're able to see. So the fact you are seeing a bit more of an all 22 look, I think is really beneficial. And frankly, for just the day that I was there, I was shocked at some of the players that were standing out just simply from the offensive side of the ball.
How so?
Well, just because, specifically, we'll talk about Troy Franklin, right? Just briefly, Troy Franklin, and you were getting the chance to see just how much of a release he's getting off the line of scrimmage. There were just a handful of times, where his release off the line of scrimmage and the corners that were guarding him, he would have probably close to 2 yards of separation off of him, the corners that were guarding him. So, to see that, you can't necessarily see that as much off of a broadcast view, right? Which is the berm view. So and then too, I will preface it this way too. The play that was getting so much buzz on that Friday, which was Jarrett Stidham's, 50-yard bomb, if you will, to Troy Franklin. A lot of people thought that was a sack, myself included. I think the way they do practice, right, is you simply just touch the quarterback and it's kind of required or whatever to be a sack. The play that I saw, and actually me and Gage kind of had roughly the same view, what I saw was actually Stidham making a pretty impressive play, stepping into the pocket and throwing it to Troy Franklin on the run. And he wasn't using and jumping up and, using his hands to actually catch the ball. It was in one full motion bucket. It was beautiful. It was pretty spectacular with what you could ask for. So his hands are getting better. It was just the way he was catching and the way he was moving, his whole body movement has just been night and day better just from just that one day when I was there on that Friday.
Additionally, I think that his route tree has expanded. Last season, he basically had 2 routes. It was a go route and a stop route. Then they'd throw him some screens. But this year, we're seeing a lot more slants, a lot more drag routes, a lot more dig routes. He's really improving in the short to intermediate areas of the field, and that's where he has those yards after catch opportunities with his blazing speed. I think that could be a big-time asset this year for Troy Franklin. So I'm really impressed because coming into this year, he was going to have to take a lot of strides, and he has. He really, really has. I'm impressed, man.
If you had to guess, where would he be on the depth chart at this point?
He probably would still maintain. I probably would say his because we're going off of training camp and we haven't seen preseason. So I probably say pecking order. He probably would be
4?
at that, probably that same place. I will say this though. If Troy Franklin wasn't having the practice that he's been having, and then frankly that it's actually been that way since OTAs too. Like he's been that way since OTAs. But if he's not practicing and playing at such the level that he's been having, I'm telling you right now, we also would be talking about Pat Bryant, because like he's also playing at such an incredible like level right now, and I think it's just. I think that for Troy specifically, it's just he's going to have to continue that, right? Like and specifically in preseason, I think thankfully we'll get a chance to see that. And I think that to Gage's point, just the simple fact that his route tree is expanding, and more specifically, you're seeing him being smart enough to use the soft spots of the zone, right? Like, and I think that like there was a point on Friday's practice when I was there, might have been a 7-on-7 practice, but like there was a point where almost said Drew, but Bo saw him.
We're not doing that again.
Yeah, Bo saw him.
Hopefully Breeze and not Locke, Mike.
Right. But Bo saw him.
She's the one that bought the jersey, not me.
Bo saw him right on the right side of the field, right, like in that 7-on-7 drill, but he stopped, he caught it, the ball was a little bit to his left, but he used his body, reached his hands out, and made a really tough catch. And I thought that was something, as far as they play, you didn't necessarily see much from Troy last year. So if that's the kind of thing that starts progressing a little bit more into games, and obviously even into this preseason, you will see that growth that we've been wanting from him.
Yeah. I just found the play here in my notes. That was a really great play.
Mm-hmm.
I want to bring up this comment from Raider Shield family. Welcome to the show. You guys think the AFC West will challenge the AFC North as best in the AFC? I don't think the AFC North is the best in the AFC. I mean, outside the Ravens, you have what's potentially a mediocre Steelers, a mediocre Bengals, and then, good Lord, who knows how bad the Browns are going to be. And I think with the history that the Chiefs have with getting to the playoffs and getting to the Super Bowl, that puts the West already at – if you're comparing the Chiefs and the Ravens, right now the Chiefs are over the Ravens just because of the past, 5 seasons? And I think if you compare the Chargers and the Broncos against the Bengals and the Steelers, the AFC West are above the AFC North.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with that. I feel like with the AFC North, you could have 3 playoff teams there if Cincinnati actually has some resemblance of a defense this year, and if the Steelers are able to step up, which they normally do. They normally go 9-8 and sneak in somehow. And then the Browns, they're just the Browns. You look at the AFC West, I could easily see a scenario where all 4 teams get in. The Raiders a little bit less so now after the Christian Wilkins stuff, but the Chargers, the Broncos, the Chiefs, all 3 of them could be serious playoff contenders this year. Mm-hmm. Obviously, stuff has to go right. Guys have to stay healthy, et cetera, et cetera. But assuming everybody reaches their potential, I think this AFC West or this AFC West division is the best division in football right now.
We could kiss you on the
even though the NFC North?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I just think that for me, there's just been something about the AFC North, though. Like as much as people like we're talking about the AFC West being better, right, than the AFC North, and I agree. I do think it is. But as much as like it gets doubted, is also when it outperforms itself. And I think that, do I think that Aaron Rodgers is going to be, a factor, or I should say a bit of a factor? I don't think so, but it's just, again, every time we doubt Tomlin specifically is when they outperform. Like they outperform. And I think that, it's really just going to be about the Bengals and how far, the Bengals are going to be, as far as a defense. Like if they have that semblance of a defense, then you're going to have a bit of a juggernaut, if you will, or at least a conversation of what is the best AFC division between the AFC West and the AFC North. Because I think that stylistically, the way that they play, meaning the NFC North, is probably comparable to the NFC West, like stylistically, like really tough defense, tough running game. So it's one where you can't really count any of the teams out except for the last one, which would be the Browns. It's one where the moment we think we're doubting the NFC or the AFC North is when some of those teams start to rise and play pretty good football.
Yeah. All right, so getting back to Broncos training camp, we did have some injuries already at training camp. Drew Sanders and Alex Singleton. I know Singleton was a hand, and he should be out for a week, and then he's back. What was Drew Sanders?
Drew Sanders was a ligament in his foot, and they're still deciding what they're going to do, if they're going to have surgery or if they're just going to let it heal. But we're probably not going to see Drew Sanders throughout the remainder of the preseason.
So this brings up an interesting question because I'm hearing one name in particular when it comes to middle linebacker, inside linebacker, Lavelle Bailey.
Mm-hmm.
Where does that leave Lavelle Bailey? He had a great preseason last year, and it sounds like he's gotten even better this offseason.
I know where it leaves him. And everybody aboard the Lavelle Bailey fan club, because if this trend continues, he'll be starting by the end of week 18. And I think it actually is going to be sooner rather than later if that's the case. Because he made, frankly, 2 plays on Friday that were Fred Warner-esque plays. Just saying it bluntly. Like it was really impressive. I mean, like he and everybody's famous tight end was a proponent of it. Like Lucas Kroll had the ball in his hands and Bailey ripped it from him. Like it was a playmaking play and Bailey made it. And I think that it's obviously not just the playmaking, but his run fits have been fantastic. And like the way that he's been able to be in coverage has been just spot on and everything that you would have could have hoped for. And you already have Sean Payton starting to talk about him in the vein of a starting level linebacker, right? And so he's already surpassing the expectations for what they had last year. And oh, by the way, he had a pick 6 last year in preseason. So like, this isn't just like something that should be like out of the norm. Like it should actually be somewhat of a regularity given from what we've seen from Bailey. So the trajectory for Bailey is he's got nowhere to go but up. And I think that, you know, it's going to be a very interesting conversation. I tweeted it out today, but it's just like, I think it's a foregone conclusion probably at this point, but like if they don't play Alex Singleton and Dre Greenlaw in preseason and they give the reins to Lavelle Bailey for the majority of that preseason and he plays really well, you're going to have a very tough decision because it's going to be one where, you know, we finally might get that chance where Alex Singleton, hey, we're really sorry you had that really tough injury, you know, due to your hand, but the upside from what we're seeing with Lavelle Bailey and the projection from what we're seeing with Lavelle Bailey with Dre Greenlaw, which could be that Fred Warner and Greenlaw type of relationship, we're sorry, buddy. We're going to have to save some money and move on from you.
Can't make the club from the tub. And it's unfortunate for Alex because he was having a decent start to camp. I was going to wait to really have any full judgment with Alex until we saw him in preseason, getting live bullet reps out there because it's pretty limited what you can do before you can put the pads on. So we'll see what happens with Alex if he's able to recover from this, get back out there. But there is a greater than 0 chance that Lavelle Bailey just takes this job and doesn't let it go. I think Lavelle Bailey has been able to take those necessary steps forward that we wanted to see from him. He's been a ball hawk, just like Cam said. He's been all over the ball. Those plays that he made on Lucas Kroll were just sensationally good. I think that Bailey has shown that he's got a good football IQ. He's got instinct. He's got all the traits that you want out of a starting inside linebacker. And Justin Sternad is still ahead of him on the depth chart. But I think as time goes forward, if Lavelle Bailey plays better and better, especially again as we get into the preseason and live bullets start flying, I think he's got a big opportunity here. And Alex Singleton was one of the worst linebackers in the league in 2023, the last time that he played a full season. he accrued a lot of volume tackles, but most of those tackles were 7 yards beyond the line of scrimmage after he'd already lost the rep, essentially. Singleton was not good in that area of the field. Additionally, run defense, quite poor as well. Literally had the most missed tackles in the entire league in 2023. And that's before he tore his ACL, and now he's 31 years old. I'm just saying that we might be having to have some tough conversations about Alex Singleton here. He might not be that same player that we're expecting him to be.
So Sean said he expects him back next week. Do you think just even that short time away is going to be enough for Bailey to secure that starting spot, or at least behind closed doors, those conversations are in full swing?
Hold on, and I want to add to what Glenn just asked. What does that also mean for the first preseason game?
I wouldn't rule it out, but also I don't expect Singleton to play in the preseason right now. Like I think it's a pretty safe bet that he won't be playing in the preseason. But like I don't want to rule anything out, right? Like I think that when you look at it just from the development side of things, Bailey will need a bit more, games or just some playing time for him to probably assert himself and, be that starter and, obviously make the tough decision to possibly move on from Singleton. The one thing I will say, and this is the Singleton's talking point, Singleton's credit, we were able to see Singleton play at such an incredible level when he had a competent linebacker next to him in Josie Jewell. He finally has that opportunity, and he'll be gone for about a week or so, but he finally has that opportunity with Dre Greenlaw. So there is that window where this 177, tackling machine linebacker that we had seen in 2023, we might see that again. And that's just simply because of the fact of Greenlaw's effect in that, middle of the defense. I think where it's going to be a bit interesting here, and this is a bit of a subtlety, if you will, or maybe more so of a thing that's going to be bearing watching, and that is the green dot idea, right? Like, and that is Alex Singleton is that linebacker that wears the green dot. And is that responsibility going to be shifted to Greenlaw? If it's shifted to Greenlaw, there's some more speculation to the idea that, okay, maybe they trust the idea of that they want Bailey a little bit, as that linebacker too, just because, Singleton really have been that green dot guy. I don't necessarily venture to be it changed, but it's certainly out there. It's certainly an idea that's out there where if Singleton does not have that green dot and it is Greenlaw, it's going to make you really wonder at that point.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, it's all about trying to find the guys who have the highest ceiling. And I understand that you don't want to crash your floor at the same time, but Lavelle Bailey is getting better and better and better. I think you have to recognize just that raw potential that this guy might have and realize that, okay, Alex Singleton's getting older. He's coming off this injury. Are we going to continue to see this level of production from Singleton? And I just got to be brutally honest, Cam and I think we completely disagree on Singleton's 2023 season. I don't think he was particularly good at all in that season, but that's just my personal opinion. I feel like this team could raise their ceiling at that position. And additionally, I want to apologize if I'm looking down at my phone a lot. I'm dealing with some YouTube bullshit right now, but yeah, man, Singleton, I'm just not impressed with what I've seen from him in the last 2 years, or the last 2 years that he's played, I should say. So for me, if we could get somebody with higher potential in that role, and Lavelle Bailey's shown that, I'm all for doing it.
Well, what about and the fact that with Greenlaw coming off of an injury, a major injury, and he only played in one game last year, what about having the security of a veteran linebacker being on the roster, that being Singleton? Or do you think if they move on from Singleton, they put Bailey in there, but maybe they bring on a a veteran inside linebacker from outside the organization. What do you think? Could that be possible too?
Sure, definitely. And I also think it's possible that Singleton is on the team, but he's not starting. I think that Alex Singleton most realistically wouldn't get a starting role elsewhere, or if he did, it would be on a really crappy team. Why not stay here, be a backup, especially if Dre Greenlaw or if LaVelle Bailey were to go down, you'd be right back in there starting. You know the defense, you know the scheme, you're a leader in the locker room. I think that could be a potential option as well. But if they were to bring in a veteran linebacker, I've talked about Jawan Bentley before on my channel. I think that he could fill that blitzing linebacker role that we kind of lost with Drew Sanders. So I do think that's definitely a possibility. I think the Broncos are just kind of playing things by ear right now. They did bring in some kind of lower tier veteran linebackers today for workouts, just because they kind of need another body in there with both Singleton and Sanders down right now. But I think it's a very fluid situation that's going to play itself out over the course of training camp in the preseason.
Well, and I don't
Now,
think
if I could jump in again, with we're talking about Drew Sanders. Like, what is his role in the next year on this team?
There might not be one, to be honest. Yeah. If we're being brutally honest, I think that he could be cut. I think if the Broncos need to create a roster spot, they could place him on IR and then waive him with an injury settlement. That would at least keep the avenue open for him to come back. They did that with Brandon Johnson a couple of years ago. He got hurt in training camp, or I believe it was like late in the preseason. They waived him with an injury settlement, and then once he was healthy, he came back. But Drew Sanders was already on the roster bubble as is, and I think as of right now, he's even more on the roster bubble with this injury.
Yeah, and I will say this, if there just one thing for Sanders, the coaching staff does love him. Like, it's very obvious that the staff loves him, but just because you love a guy doesn't mean that he's going to be, stayed around. He did have a bit of an uphill climb, and he's going to have much more of an uphill climb, next year. Or even at the middle point of the season. He's not going to be gone for, the entire season. So it's just going to be the question of, what will it look like for Sanders and his outlook, possibly, and with his recovery. He will have probably more playing time than he did last year, right? Because he did play in just the Chargers game. So he's going to have a little bit more, time there. I will say I do agree with Gage in the sense, like, you're hitting more so of a high floor with Singleton in the lineup still, in the lineup versus the higher ceiling with LaVelle Bailey. I completely agree. I just think that the idea of Singleton and, with what he's at least did in 2023 and the fact he had Josie Jewell, at that point, a more competent linebacker with him, gives you at least some flexibility to where it's possible it can happen with Greenlaw. I will say that Singleton, if he does take a bit of a back seat, there's some versatility to where, and granted, he was so much younger at that point, but he did play special teams. Like, I think people need to remember that. Like, Singleton did play special teams before he earned that starting job with the Broncos and signed that 1-year deal. So it is certainly not out of the realm of possibility where maybe instead of Justin Strnad, you have actually Alex Singleton being that vocal leader of that special teams unit. So then at that point you have, granted, special teams already is upgraded, but you have Singleton in there, possibly Strnad in there. And so, I mean, just like, I think there's at least a possibility in the window there where Singleton could possibly play special teams. But, asking a guy who's 31 years old and, at this point in his career is almost like, hey, do you want to be demoted to AAA? And I don't know if he would take that.
Yep.
So we're going to take a quick throwback break for Raiders Shield family question. Top 5 Broncos ever. I know mine. Curious if it is similar. I'm going to say Elway, Terrell Davis, Von Miller, Steve Atwater, and Demaryius Thomas.
I'm writing mine down. Give me a second.
Is this our favorite Broncos ever, or
probably? I mean, I love Rod Smith, so I was debating between Rod Smith and Demaryius Thomas, but Demaryius Thomas.
Because I think for Glenn, if it's favorite Broncos ever, it would be
Guys in the 40s.
the top 5 would be Steve Watson, Steve Watson, and then Steve Watson.
I noticed you completely ignored the fact that if Court has a good, that Watson is 1,000 yards ahead of Court at this point. I think that you got to go Elway Davis, Randy Gradishar.
Ooh.
I think you have to put Floyd Little, even because the team was not good at that point, and there was a chance that they could have moved from Denver at that point. So I think you have to put him on there. And gosh, who would the 5th be? Let's see here.
You're talking.
It's got to be Von.
Chan Bailey, Von Miller.
Yeah, I think Von Miller. I think you got to put Von on there. I mean, the more you see the highlights of him in his prime, especially in that 2014, 2015 window, I mean, that performance in the Super Bowl was like nothing I've ever seen before.
He's got Manning and Champ in there.
Yeah.
I mean, best cornerback in Broncos history.
So for
Thank
me,
you for the
I've
Steve
got-
Watson. Honorable mention, Steve Watson.
I've got John Elway, obviously, franchise leading passer, responsible for every single Super Bowl that we've won. Floyd Little, there's no Denver Broncos without Floyd Little. This team would have moved out of town. Shannon Sharp, gotta put Unk up there, man. You just got to. Rod Smith, I think that one speaks for itself. And then Von Miller, he's your franchise leader in sacks. He has to be there.
So can I ask why Rod Smith and not Demaryius Thomas? Just because that's what I was debating between. So I'm just wondering.
I mean, I was too, and honestly, if we were just speaking off of the era that I grew up in, it would have been Demaryius Thomas, but I think Rod Smith made a bigger impact. It's close, though.
Yeah, if the question is obviously just strictly top 5 Broncos ever, you would probably have to put Elway in there. You might actually have to say Peyton Manning in there too.
What if you could only use players that didn't play for a different team?
I think for the Broncos it would be
because that takes Champ Bailey out, that takes Manning out, that
no,
takes Sharp out.
Yeah, would take
that takes Von Miller out.
That literally keeps my 5 intact, actually.
Well, then I couldn't do that because, like, Vaughn has to be there. He has to.
Oh, that's right. Vaughn is gone. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Who else would we have?
Shannon Sharp would also be gone because he played for Baltimore.
Yeah.
Tom Jackson, maybe.
Steve Watson.
Steve Watson was a lifelong Bronco. We laugh about Steve Watson, but if you ever spend some time watching any of his highlights, this freaking guy was an absolute menace in the NFL and for years. And he was the most trusted receiver for Craig Morton, DeBerg, and Elway when he was starting out. I mean, the fact that he's not in the Ring of Fame, I wish I knew a way to really push that forward. And maybe they are doing things behind the scenes because they are recognizing some of the older players more. But if you ever get a few minutes to look at some of his highlights, guy caught everything, was sneaky fast. But my all-time favorite.
So I think for me, like as far as top 5, it would be Elway, it would be Manning. I would put Vaughn in there. I think Champ has to be there. I think you probably would have to put, Terrell Davis in there probably as the top 5. As far as top 5 favorite Broncos, well, that's a different conversation entirely. Obviously, Justin Simmons is in that conversation.
He's got Marquette King on there. He's got Paxton Lynch on there.
Jeremy Crawshaw.
Hey, no Crawshaw hate.
But no,
Chad Kelly,
Justin Simmons, Demaryius Thomas, Peyton Manning, Von Miller, and probably Terrell Davis. Actually, I have to think about it more, but the top 3 are really easy for me. Top 4, actually.
I apologize, boys. I might have to step out of here. It looks like I'm going to have to go deal with this crap with YouTube.
Okay, so just for clarification's sake, YouTube, we love you. If you're going to punish anybody, that guy right down there, he's the one talking smack.
It's not what they're doing; it's what they haven't done. Stupid YouTube
Jerks.
Alrighty, cheers, boys.
Yeah.
All right, take care.
So back to our regularly scheduled programming.
That is a good one, though. The top 5 Broncos versus your top 5 favorite Broncos.
Yeah, John Mobley.
I would say Elway would not be on my top 5 favorite Broncos.
No, me either.
No.
Well, because that's the thing too. Is my favorite Broncos quarterback is actually not Elway. Like it is Peyton Manning, and and it's actually not even close.
Yeah, I love Peyton Manning. I just, given the 5 and some of the historical importance of like the Floyds and the Gradishar, I just had to bypass Peyton, but certainly he should be on there.
Yeah. So back to our regularly scheduled training camp points again.
I know that was a conversation that would have been a great off-season conversation when we had nothing else to talk about.
Facts. We were talking about the defense. Sean Payton said they're having Jahdae Barron, who's our first-round pick, starting on the inside. Is that what we want, or do we want him to move out to the outside?
I mean, frankly, like we should do what's in the best interest for Barron and his, in his development. I think where it at least is so beneficial for him is like he's such a versatile piece. Like he is such a versatile piece where they could put him anywhere, right? Like he could put him at nickel, he could put him at, the outside. There's been some cases where he can play safety, and I think people need to remember that. Like he can actually play safety too. So I think that, just putting him where he's going to be a bit comfortable, which will probably end up being that nickel spot, I think will be pretty beneficial because he is such a high IQ intellectual type of corner.
Listen, these guys know best. And certainly I'm sure they talk to number 2 and get his opinion on where he thinks that the young man would be comfortable. I'm just excited that this defense, who was so killer last year, has actually gotten stronger leaps and bounds. I mean, I cannot wait for this year. I can't remember a season where I was more excited than this one.
The comparison, honestly, is kind of like the wide receiver room in a sense, because the top 6, because you got a fair thing in the sense of like the top 6 are pretty set in stone. Well, the cornerback room, once you hit to Chris Abrams' drain, is pretty dang set, right? Like it's just after that is where you kind of have the conversation of who do you keep after that, or who do you, do you slide in another corner, right? Because like you're talking about Pat Surtain, Jahdae Barron, you're talking about Riley Moss, you're talking about Jaquan McMillian, Chris Abrams drain. Like, after that, it's anyone's guess, right? Like it's anyone's guess. I will say this, like, I know a lot of people have talked about the slot corner position, and myself included, have fallen into that based on the yardage that was given up. I think probably more so given the fact of probably why they were strongly considering Barron was the Levi Wallace problem. Like the depth of that cornerback room, frankly, after the top 3, if you will, or when Drain kind of came in, he stabled things like the tail end of that season. But the Levi Wallace experiment was not great at all.
We were all excited for that signing last year too. Yeah. Like, oh, this is going to be great.
Yeah.
Well, it was one of those things too, is that he was massively exposed against the Cleveland Browns. I mean, so it was not like we were talking about Joe Montana. I mean, it was. I mean that it was probably at that moment they said, you know what, we should look at DB in the first round.
Right. We need to really look into upgrading that room.
Right. Well, and that's talking about, Jahdae Barron and the guys that we brought in there, but then we still have Deontay Tillman, Jonathan Cooper, Jonah Ellis. I mean, all these guys have been talked about at training camp this year. Like we could be like 4 deep in just starter level play.
Yeah, and I think that like if you look at like the way that things have unfolded, probably up until camp, like the front seven has been a huge conversation, which to the credit of Alex Singleton is Singleton's credit because he's part of the front seven. But it's also not just that; it's a credit to Lavelle Bailey, but also the rest of that linebacker crew. So guys like Karen Reed has been showing up. That front seven has been really impressive. I mean, like if they're and to talk about some of those rookies, right? Like there's a player that has been jumping off the page, like in training camp, and that is Cube Robinson. Like Cube Robinson is starting to get a bit of some love right now in training camp, and I am very curious to see what the plan would be for Tillman. We talk about ceiling, right? As we're talking about with Alex Singleton, linebacker room, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? Well, if you're talking about like the backup pass rushers after Cooper and Benito, I think it's safe to say that the higher ceiling probably would be Q Robinson and Jonah Ellis, like after that. But I think where it's going to be a bit interesting is I think Q has enough versatility with him where if they wanted to play him as off-ball linebacker, I think he could do it. I think he actually could do it. So I wouldn't rule out anything as far as Robinson, but he is one of those players that has really jumped off the page on obviously special teams work and when they've been on the field.
But to Mike's point about the depth in so many different areas of this team, I mean, I could see situations where we actually may end up trading some guys during the preseason, getting some late round draft picks just because the talent is so strong in on this team. It's I mean, you don't see that very often, and if we can stay healthy, I mean, the sky truly is the limit here.
Well, so and we talked about the wide receiver room. That goes to show how deep it is, right? Like, so because of the fact that Franklin is probably the rising star of training camp or practices as of late, right? And then you have Pat Bryant. Well, we're forgetting about another guy who was off to a really hot start in 2024, but also had a really good training camp, was a bit of an older rookie, and Devon Bailey. And so like, and now you're starting to hear some things about Evan Ingram too. So it's just like, the fact that we are starting to have, and I know Ingram is, a tight end, but we always kind of consider him and lump him into that wide receiver / tight end conversation. But like they have weapons, but that goes to the depth of the team, right? We couldn't have that conversation last year. We wanted to have that conversation, but we couldn't have the conversation because the middle of the field was just basically Devon Bailey or little Jordan. I'm gonna fumble Humphrey. So like it wasn't necessarily as deep. So now you have so many weapons for that middle of the field with guys like Evan Ingram, Devon Bailey, and Pat Bryant, and then possibly Troy Franklin, depending on what they wanted to do with the middle of the field on him.
And with the middle of the field, we could be converting way more third downs than we were in previous years. Because now when you're talking about, and Gage had talked about, the slants, from Troy. And when you have Ingram and his bread and butter, these 5 to 8 yard receptions, I mean, we're just going to be doing some dumps. And then you got Dobbins coming out of the backfield, on third down. I mean, oh my gosh, this is just, this could be wicked.
Yeah, and this kind of brings up another point when it comes to tight end. You had the Seahawks release Noah Fant, and everybody was, we want to bring Noah Fant back. We need another tight end. But I think a lot of people are forgetting, like, Caleb Lohner, the rookie that we drafted. I mean, again, we don't know how good he's going to be.
Right.
But at the same time, he's 6'7", like 250, and he can block. That's the whole point against Noah Fant, is that he doesn't block, or if he tries, he misses. So
he's willing, though. You got to give him that.
Yeah, I'm not saying he's going to be fantastic. We still have Troutman. That's a great blocking tight end. But we don't know what we have in Loner yet. I don't want to go out and get Noah Fant. I would rather see what we have.
I think Loner is going to catch a minimum of 3 touchdowns this year.
Yeah, I think me and Glenn are kind of in the same wavelength in the sense, like, I think he's maybe not the touchdowns, but I think he's going to see some action this year. Like, I just have this sneaky suspicion that he's going to see the field, and it might actually end up being red zone. Because like there were times in practice, right? Like when they're working red zone drills, it's breathtaking to watch a 6'7" tight end put on his basketball performance in the red zone as he's boxing out players and, defensive backs and recreating the time when he was against the CU Buffaloes and boxing out defensive backs and, getting touchdowns left and right. So I wouldn't rule anything out, and it's pretty obvious. And we know that Sean Payton is a straight shooter. He's talked about him. Like he's talked about Caleb Loner and how much, he really enjoys the development of like how far he can be able to, as far as, how he's development. And he's kind of indirectly or directly, lumped him into the conversation of Jimmy Graham. And people, obviously, it's not just him, but, people have had the conversation of like, oh, this is another basketball tight end that we're going to develop and possibly, turn into this competent, solid tight end, if you will. So it's just, it's going to be really interesting. Like in ways where it's just like he could be the X factor or like a X factor going forward. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to follow that.
When you were a kid and like the adult would hold the ball up in the air and you'd be jumping up and trying to get it and you just could never get anywhere close.
Nuts. That's how you solve it. Wow!
That's the Christian Wilkins and Mike talking. But, that is Caleb Loner in the end zone. That if Bo could just lob it up there, what defensive back is able to even come close to knocking that ball? You'd have to knock his arms. You'd have to knock him down. I mean, the guy is just such a presence. I don't want to bring anyone else in there. I don't want to. This guy makes the 53. They cannot risk putting him on the practice squad because somebody else will give him a shot.
Well, I think an underrated aspect of the tight ends that we have, and that's including Evan Ingram, is the willingness to block. Like Evan Ingram is a blocking tight end as much as he is a pass catching tight end. He is. I'm not saying he's great at it, but he is willing to do it. He will go out there and put his body on somebody, and that's
Nate
the whole
Atkins,
point.
Mike.
Like right. So like it's the effect that's going to have on the run game, especially when you have like Marvin Mims running a jet sweep or a screen or trying to bounce the ball to the outside. Having those tight ends that are willing to go out and block, but also able to go out and catch the ball. That's what we've been missing with the tight end room in the last couple of years.
Well, and I think that's just to the overall point between tight ends and running back. And I saw the RJ Harvey, comment by Paul. Like RJ Harvey has now kind of had a pretty good training camp at this point, right? So like I think that's what people need to understand is like for people who, or I should say people who have been living under a rock, and that is like the impact that the tight end room has with the simple additions of Evan Ingram and possibly Caleb Loner to go along with the two that they added this year in RJ Harvey and J.K. Dobbins, probably going to end up being your 1-2 punch or 1A, 1B punch, if you will, of that running back room. Like, I don't think people are talking enough about that, and maybe that's just simply the RJ Harvey and J.K. Dobbins type of angle on that, because it's just like the angle of what you can have as far as a capable running game, not one that's going to be running straight at offensive linemen or, one that just the screen game is going to be a bit inept because the vision just simply isn't there, or Jaleel McLaughlin's vision just isn't there enough on some of those pass plays or even on run plays. I just think the idea of them moving forward to this outside zone scheme, which is going to help just more athleticism for guys like that offensive line, but specifically guys like RJ Harvey and J.K. Dobbins. Like, it is going to be so beneficial for them to where the vision will be better. You'll see them, be one cut and go necessarily on some runs. Like, it is just, it's going to be such a beautiful sight to see. And I think you are starting to kind of see that. I mean, Sean, as you guys know, I'm a big body language person. Like, you could just tell how much he was lighting up talking about RJ Harvey in that press conference. When he was talking about like how, man, he made a run, like, and all of a sudden, he jumps left and then he was gone. And it was just something, when he talked about that, you could just tell he was lighting up talking about Harvey in that aspect. So I think that just having a competent middle of the field seam tight end who could stretch the field while having RJ Harvey and J.K. Dobbins really be that 1-2 punch and with the vision and obviously pass blocking, I think will be so beneficial to it with J.K. The offense will take a leap. The question is just how much of that leap because of the simple additions of that.
Yeah, and I do want to clarify before Glenn, we are very excited that there's football right now, but we are talking like 3 or 4 practices of acclimation and 2 practices of pads. Okay, like we're not sitting here saying that every player on the Broncos is the best player in the NFL. They are, but we're talking like 6 practices here. We're just very, very, very excited because there's football.
Isn't there football this week?
I think Thursday, isn't it the Hall of Fame game?
Yeah, I think.
You know what's crazy is we talk about the depth and the depth in the wide receiver room. It was 58 minutes before the name Marvin Mims Jr. was mentioned
by you.
No,
yeah.
but in this, no, I'm talking about on this podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, that says something, and that's no disrespect to Marv. Like, this guy is going to play a major part in this team this year, but it just goes to show you it's going to be very difficult to form this roster, and as cuts end up happening.
Yeah, it's just exciting to look into the unknown, right? Like, we know what we have with Marvin Mims. We know that it can be more, but now we have all these other toys we can play with that we're hoping are going to pan out the way that we think they're going to pan out. Like, Troy Franklin, to me, is the most exciting person in the world. Like, he's got that speed to be the deep threat guy. And if he can just make sure he figures out the routes and catches the ball, like, he could be one of those guys.
Or one of the two.
Yeah, right? Like, he could be. And with the built-in chemistry he has with Bo Nitz, it's exciting.
It's exciting.
It's exciting. I'm so excited.
And he's not small. He's a bigger guy.
Yeah, he got bigger too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's and I think that therein lies the thing, is like the fact you have the chemistry with Bo just only makes you so like just that much better of a player possibly in year 2. But I think it's also, to Franklin's credit, it's the mentality he's taking, right? Like, that switch kind of went on where it's just like, I'm taking this leap. You can't stop me. No one can stop me. And like, having that kind of mentality, I think, and to every single practice has really shaped it to where, I want to be the best out there. And he's really taken that to heart. And, I'm hoping at some point we can, hear him, speak at the media and really kind of talk about his mindset, heading into year 2. But yeah, it's pretty obvious, like, having that kind of chemistry is also just going to benefit him that much more, and so I'm very excited about the team. And I think that, to the unknown idea, I think that's what makes the preseason so fun. Like, the 3 of us are sickos, right? Like, we love the preseason, but also it's one, like, we love the underdog story. So that is ultimately why, like, for me, it's like, I love watching that 3rd preseason game. There are some people that don't, like, because it's the 3rd preseason, it's meaningless. It's, but like me, I love the idea of these guys are vying for not just roster spots on the Denver Broncos, but of the 31 other teams. So like, the fact that we can have conversations of, oh, here's Alberto Cuevanon going off in the last preseason game. Oh, he's been traded because he got us a draft pick, out of that. So it's just
after
like,
we figured out how
Trinity Benson.
Yeah, Trinity Benson was the other one too. Like, it's just like, so things happen to where it's just like the depth shows out. And I think that just the simple fact of preseason as it goes on is just a beautiful testament to your depth.
Yeah.
But the fact that Troy Franklin is so fast and he's listed at 6'3", I mean, it's pretty exciting. But I'm looking at his stats from last year. 16 games, only 28 receptions, 263 yards. Not stellar. So he knows that. He heard the criticism. He heard people say that he might even be on the bubble coming into this year. And I think that talk is completely gone at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So last point before we go, I want to talk about rookies that we think are going to make a big contribution to the team, but you cannot include Jahdae Barron because we know that he's going to contribute, and you cannot include RJ Harvey because we know that he's going to contribute. So any other rookie that you think is going to have a breakout year or a big contribution to the Broncos?
Glenn?
Oh, I'm just getting my list here. Hang on.
I mean, if you would have been here earlier, I would have given you time.
I think it sounds crazy, but I think our punting game is going to be hugely improved and make a massive difference. Crawshaw, not only will he be a character,
You dickhead.
I think he's. I think that the reports are that he is just absolutely blasting the ball.
Yes.
I was going to go with.
He has 2 or 3 seconds of hang time on his punts. It's actually impressive. And there were multiple occasions where he was pinning him in a corner or he was pinning him inside the 20 on his punts. It was crazy that Friday that I was there. And I think it's a good answer because I think people forget about special teams. So, Mike, if you chose Jeremy Crawshaw,
I had a whole speech ready because I didn't think anybody else was going to pick punter.
Go ahead.
It up.
Yeah.
No, you don't get it now.
My tribute was lackluster.
Now I know for next time I answer first.
Glenn was Dwayne Wade, and he gave you the alley-oop to LeBron James so you can dunk it in. Go ahead. Finish it off.
I'm picking somebody else. Go ahead, Cam.
Well, I might actually pick yours on this one.
Give it up.
Pat Bryant is who I was going to go with.
That's why I didn't pick him.
As we were saying earlier, if Troy Franklin is not having the kind of camp and practices that he's been having, we would be talking about Bryant. And I think that, it's going to be so fascinating with Devon Vele, and as things kind of progress about the depth of this team, where things transition for Bryant, because I think there's a very real chance that obviously the wide receiver room gets a decent chunk of targets, but I would not rule out Pat Bryant of that savvy route runner who can find the soft spots and zones with incredible hands. He's not necessarily your burner or, someone like a Troy Franklin, but he's one of those savvy Keenan Allen type of players where he's going to get open and it makes you appreciate it because it's such an art. And I think that, he's going to be that friendly target. And Zach Stevens mentioned that at training camp. He said, if you actually get a chance to watch some of the practices, all the quarterbacks, all the quarterbacks have been gravitating to Pat Bryant. That's not something that you want to dismiss, right? So I think that it's got a very real chance that the Pat Bryant fan club that I am certainly a part of, I think will be quite happy.
Yeah.
62204. Sean Payton loves these big guys.
He does.
I'm going to go with somebody that rushes the ball. Q Robinson. I think
he rushes the ball?
Rushes the passer.
You said ball.
Shut up. Leave me alone. I'm going to my backup.
Mike just gets distracted when Q.
I got distracted because
BBQ.
I think it got Star Trek in my head. No, we have a great defensive line. We have great edge rushers, but I think that Q Robinson is going to be one of those guys that contributes at key points. I think he's going to earn his way into a rotation. And when it's 3rd and 2, when it's within the last 2 minutes of the game, when it's 4th and 3 or 4th and goal, he's going to be that guy that's going to be on the field rushing the passer, getting the sack, or disrupting the quarterback, disrupting the play. And I think that's going to win us a couple games.
I mean,
Wow.
there's only, one person to thank for it, and that'd be Nick Saban. I mean,
Yeah. I'm not sitting here saying he's going to play every down, he's going to be starter, but I think he's going to be one of those guys that earns his way into the rotation.
Right.
And the minimum amount of times that he's on the field is going to be impact.
I think all of them are really good choices, just because, like for Q, what other blessing do you need with Nick Saban? The simple fact you have a guy like that, and to go with possibly his a bit of an athletic frame, and you go to Sean Payton's type of system, like there's also a very real chance you're talking about him having a bit more of a staple in this defense. Maybe not necessarily the 4.5 sacks to 5 sacks that we saw from guys like Dondrea Tillman and Jonah Ellis, of course, but but I wouldn't rule it out, of course, because he's such a freak athlete. Like he's such a twitchy athlete to where he could get to the passer. He could probably sack the quarterback. And he's such a detailed player / person because he loves special teams. You've got to think that the run defense is going to be a big part of that too, to where he'll get better at that area. So he'll be a bit more of a well-rounded athlete too, as the season's starting to kind of progress. So I'm all for it. I am definitely all for Q Robinson. I will say, just as the draft class as a whole, I know maybe it's just a prisoner of the moment. And I know that, the last 2 draft classes that we've had, we finally have had our draft picks. But I think that this draft class in particular is going to be the one these last 2, but like this one in particular is going to be one where we go back on, and certainly got a lot of hate from a lot of people, but they were very poignant in how they were attacking it. And I think we're going to look at this one and be like, this was a foundational draft.
Yeah.
The only one we left off when we were not allowed to actually we left off Loner, but we given him his flowers a little bit earlier. But Savion Jones, the defensive end from LSU, that was the only one. I agree with Cam. I think this draft has the makings of incredible young foundation, and not to mention the fact that now the Broncos, with these new facilities, with the culture, with the quarterback, with the money of the owners, I mean, people are going to be just knocking on our doors in the next years to be free, as free agents to come here.
If not sooner.
It won't be a tough sell.
No.
Yeah. All right. Anything else that we need to bring up or talk about before we go? I think we got it all covered.
Cam, do you have any more training camp days, or was that it?
That was it. I was fortunate with the neighbor that we had that he was able to get those 4 tickets. So, that is it for me. I wasted away my hot day in the 90-degree weather in those bleachers, and it was just fine for me.
There you go. Well, we want to thank everybody for joining us, except for Gage, because he was yelling at YouTube, and we don't do that here. No, I'm just kidding. We want to thank everybody for joining us. So it's always great when you guys can be here, and there's no more skipping weeks unless somebody's like, I'm sick, or we're all doing something.
Or Mike doesn't want to.
We might skip weeks. But basically, I'm not even going to go there. Okay, we want to thank everybody for joining us on the show. We love you guys. It's always fun to do that. Make sure you check out all the shows on the network. We have shows Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And then the neighborhood is going to start back up on Broncos game days. So the first one will be Bill and Spence doing the Broncos Titans, because I will be in Denver with Glenn and Gage and Cam, and that should be fun.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited. And we'll continue on from there.
You know what would be fun, by the way?
What?
Just for Bill's, sake, and you should do a neighborhood during preseason, because I want to see.
We talked about that, but the amount of players that we would not know,
that's the point.
It would just be insanity.
That's the point.
I'm
It's
picturing
true.
Bill with like this all these printouts. of
He's got a Rolodex of like numbers. Who is that guy?
It would be pure entertainment.
It'll look like a ticker tape parade with all the freaking
but I
papers.
I can
shooting
tell you,
around.
there would be a lot of times where you would hear Bill just going, "Who is it?" I give up. I don't know anymore. It would be kind of funny. But yeah, make sure you check out all those shows. Give us a thumbs up on the videos. It is absolutely free. It takes a millisecond to do, but it really helps out the channel. So we appreciate that. We will continue to give you updates through training camp and through the preseason games. We love you guys. We love Broncos country. We love the Broncos. We'll see you guys later. Peace.
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Simcoe's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast's racking up the flame out.